People can change their lives by having the right question at the right time, sitting down, journaling about it, and then actually starting to see, oh, I see where I've been. I see why it's been so hard for me to move on. And now I see what I really want. And they just clear out all the negativity, they clear out the challenges, and they start creating the next thing. Because the people that you and I talk to are great creators. The problem is they don't know what to create. What we're trying to do is become a witness to our life rather than inside of the life.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another podcast where we're going to talk with Leisa Peterson. And every single episode, we're joined by some of the best real estate, financial wealth minds in the world, where they're sharing their ideas, deal secrets, and inspiration. So together we can make complex tax deferral strategies simple and passive income plans achievable. My name is Brett Swartz, and I'm excited to have Leisa Peterson on today. She is from the great state of Arizona. She wrote the book, The Mindful Millionaire. This is the key to true financial wisdom. And today we're talking about beyond wealth, ways to build wealth in a way that can give you fulfillment and also impact. Please welcome to the show with me, Leisa Peterson. Leisa, how are we doing?
I'm doing great. So happy to be here.
Absolutely. And for our listeners getting to know you for the first time, would you give us a little bit more about your story and your current focus?
Yeah, so I started a coaching, education, book writing business about 10 years ago. At that time, I left my financial advising position. My husband and I have been investing in real estate for 30 years, and I grew up with very little. So I decided at a young age that if I had more money, I'd be happy. And we became very successful with real estate in our mid-30s and had some tragedies and some difficult times occur that caused me to question whether money was going to do all the things that I thought it was in life. And I realized that I needed to focus on the things that now I do for, I help other people focus on, but it's been quite a journey, and I'm so grateful to be as blessed as I am. I've got 2 children, been married to my college sweetheart for a very long time. We're empty nesters now, and we're really enjoying our lives to the fullest.
Fantastic. Absolutely love that. For our listeners, we always like to ask like the top strengths or the gifts that you've been given and how it helps you to help bless people, helps you to help bless people. So what would you say is the 1 or 2 strengths that always came natural to you, Leisa, and how does that help how you help and bless people today?
I definitely say money is one of those things that I'm blessed with. I just got it. And I knew that if I could create greater value in the world, that I could have more money. And so everything I showed up at, whether it be my first job, cutting lawns for neighbors or what have you, to this day, I know that when you create more value in people's lives, it pays off in a big way. And I feel like that's one of my greatest strengths. The other is kindness. I have led with kindness, and not that I always knew if I was being kind or not, because I think that trauma sometimes causes us to do things that we think are helpful to other people, but they aren't. But I've always led with that, and I think it's really served my life and my family, and I see it in my children and my husband, and I think, oh yeah, if we can create greater kindness in the world, it makes a big difference.
Love it. Wealth and money and kindness, understanding money, and then kindness leading with that. With that in mind, let's dive right into the topic at hand, which is beyond wealth, right? So what would you say is the number one secret to getting beyond wealth? And what do you mean when you say beyond wealth?
What I mean is, just like I was saying before, it's not just about the money, right? We can get to our deathbed and have all the money in the world, but if we have not focused on understanding ourselves, understanding why we're here, understanding a connection, most likely for many people to something beyond the small little self that sort of gets in our way. So connection to a higher power. The whole center of that has been what I've realized in my own journey, and being able to get in touch with what's most important and not just know, because a lot of times people don't even know. They're just going through the motions of like, I can build wealth, I can start another company, I can buy another asset, I can add to my portfolio. But at no point do you ask, where is this going? What do I really want? How is this going to make my life better? Because once you get a certain amount of money, it doesn't matter. Like, you can have all the stuff that you want. It is just, it's a focus on achievement rather than fulfillment. And so I think I had to understand that switch, and it took me a long time to make the switch. And I still continue to learn what that means to be truly fulfilled, giving myself permission to even ask, well, what's next, or what would cause me to be even more fulfilled. And so those are the sorts of questions that I like diving into.
Yeah, those are great questions. And it sounds like it's more of the eternal questions and the things that are going to be long lasting, right? The character, the legacy, the leadership, the impact versus just the things that are the here and now, right? The temporary stuff. I absolutely love that. And the focus on the fulfillment versus just achievement. Maybe talk to us about maybe a client success story or someone that you've helped as, coaching and the people you've helped over the years, making that transition. What was the top questions and ways that you helped to unlock that for them in a way that was actionable and in a way that could change their legacy for their wealth?
A lot of the folks that I work with have been business owners for many years, and they became very successful in running the business. But along the way, they lost, the ability to know what really brings them happiness. And so the questions that often have to get asked when someone gets to the stage where it's like, maybe I can't go this alone because I'm inside of what I know. I don't know what I don't know. And so asking questions about what is the thing, it's interesting because a lot of times we have to start at what's the thing that's causing you problems? Where is your heart not singing? Where are you maybe waking up at night and not being able to go back to sleep? Like, what's going on inside of you that feels heavy, feels negative, feels limiting? And when we uncover those things, oftentimes we see that beneath that is this whole other possibility. So clients, one client in particular, again, just very preoccupied with the business. And as soon as these questions started being asked, they realized that there was this part of them that wanted to be more free-spirited, wanted to travel more, wanted to have more fun, wanted to explore things that they had never had time to explore, namely spiritual things. And it was in the questions that got asked in the journaling. Side note on journaling, something I recently learned. There is a ton of research. And I'll say this, I've got clients, men in particular, who have never journaled in their life. So we're just going to say this for all of those folks, okay? There has been research that going to a therapist and talking about what it is going, the problems, you've uncovered a problem, you just start talking about it. That is not as effective as sitting down and journaling about what's going on in your life. So being asked some really good questions and then sitting there journaling. And what happens, this is like a hypothesis because the research consistently says people like lower their cholesterol through journaling. Like they become happier and more content. They become more self-fulfilled. And I think it's because when we journal, we activate parts of our brain that naturally start to create a setting of what's going on in your life and start to try and troubleshoot or solve or resolve the crisis that's coming up in the journaling. Like we naturally have this ability. Whereas I think when we sit in front of somebody, whether it be a therapist or a friend, and we just talk about the story over and over again, we don't do the same thing. We don't necessarily come up with solutions. We don't find the next step on. So loaded kind of question with what you asked me, but what I've seen is people can change their lives by having the right question at the right time, sitting down, journaling about it, and then actually starting to see, oh, I see where I've been. I see why it's been so hard for me to move on. And now I see what I really want. And they just clear out all the negativity, they clear out the challenges, and they start creating the next thing. Because the people that you and I talk to are great creators. The problem is they don't know what to create.
Wow, amazing. Thank you for that. First of all, I'm inspired now to start journaling, number one. But number two, it sounds like not having a clear vision for for when your happiness either has dissolved or you've lost it in just the busyness of being an entrepreneur or a business owner or an investor, and you've lost like the clear thing that brings you happiness is number one. Number two, what are the big problems or challenges that are the key stress or the key things that are keeping you up at night or making or feel like really heavy, right? So identifying those, having just the awareness and starting to listen to your thoughts, listen to what's going on, so awareness, and then creating a clear vision for or just creating space to actually journal, to write these things out, because it's going to activate a part of the brain that's going to help to start solving some of these things just naturally. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, that's a great summary. I'll add one thing because you made me think of it. What we're trying to do is become a witness to our life rather than inside of the life. And by being the witness, you become the orchestrator and the producer and the composer. Like you're doing it all by that witness level. But when you're inside of your life, just living it, it's really hard to see the strategy of what's going to create what we're talking about today, the beyond wealth.
That is so cool. Wow. And by the way, you can learn more about Leisa Peterson a couple different places. We've got is it Wealth Clinic, I believe is the first one. And then you also have the Mindful Millionaire, right?
Yes.
Book, which is really cool. And so wealthclinic.com is where you can learn more about Leisa. So now let's keep going on this, right? So beyond wealth, after you've done the things we just talked about, you're starting to journal. What are some other things that are helpful, practical next steps and or questions to be asking, or where do people go from that point?
One of the things that I've learned in my own journey, I mentioned that we've been empty nesters now for almost a year. And this year has been, I have to say, one of the best years of my life. And one of the reasons for that is because I've given myself more space to savor the moments. And what do I mean by that? I went to Bali. I was invited to speak in Bali in the fall, and I carved out extra time. So I was there for 3 weeks, and the event was like less than a week. And in that experience, I put myself in situations, for example, renting a scooter and driving around Bali, which when I first got there, I was like, heck no, I will never be on one of these. These people are crazy drivers. But in the course of the time there, I worked up the courage. I do have my motorcycle license, but I worked up the courage and said, I'm going to try this. And there was a group of people the first day that I got to do it with. And then once I did that, it opened up this whole possibility of exploring the island and having all these cool experiences happen by me just traveling around by myself on the scooter. What I learned in that experience was that I saw my whole life flash before me of how fear and how busyness and how raising a family had caused me to become smaller and smaller in the vision of who I was and how I wanted to live my life. And by riding the scooter and just watching, one day driving through the rice fields, the sun is setting, the most beautiful colors in the sky. People are working and wearing the hats, and you feel like you're on a completely different planet than, the United States. I would have these like out of body experiences of absolute bliss. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, this is what life is about. Not all the mundane, busy, got to do this, got to do that, got to do those things. They need to be done. But when those become the meaning of your life, like I could see how easy it is to get trapped. And I've been doing those sorts of experiences ever since, looking for the moments to savor, pushing myself out of my comfort zone, taking risks that I might not have taken in the past, and living fully.
That's amazing. I want to go to Bali now, and I want to ride on a scooter. The only scooter I've ever really done is in Hawaii. It was our senior trip, well, mainly the only scooter. Now I ride one wheels with my kids. They ride the scooters with the one wheels, and we kind of cruise on the streets here in our neighborhood. But you're right. I mean, getting out of the day to day and the mundane and looking for opportunities to explore the world gives life, right? It's like life giving. So, okay, got it. That's good. So, actionable steps like that: take some risks, calculated risk, and get outside of the normal mundane. I love that. What about when it comes to the wealth management or the business owner who's owning the asset, or the assets owning them, right? And the overall transfer of the wealth to the next generation, and like the practical steps. Like, talk about your approach in helping people with the mindset of legacy and wealth transfer, and maybe get into the nuts and bolts of, like, tax and ways that you're
Yeah.
gonna try to increase your cash flow to offset your time that you're trading for the dollars, right? And so that you can be having these type of experiences that you're talking about.
Yeah. Two things come to mind. It's interesting because we just passed tax day and I got my taxes done on time, which is like a big accomplishment when you have lots of syndicated investments, because literally those K1s were coming in and my accountant, we had done everything and we were ready for them. So I was pretty proud of myself. But here's the deal. My daughter and her husband started a company a couple years ago that has exploded. And this past 2 years, they're continuously asking me, what do normal people do if they don't have a financial expert at their disposal? And I'm like, honestly, I don't know, because I don't know what it would cost to hire someone like me for as much as we've had to work together. But what I want to say is that knowledge about personal finance, in my opinion, is one of the most important things that we can have for ourselves and teach to our children. There is no end to the amount of information. Like, you're never going to have it all. But what I found is that I am the one who is 100% responsible for directing my CPA, for directing my payroll company, for directing my financial advisor. I ask them for advice. I want their expertise, but at no time do I abdicate responsibility to other people. And I feel like that is why my husband and I have created the freedom that we do in our lifestyle and in our wealth, is because I learned when I didn't understand something. And I think that when people go out and they engage in things and they don't fully understand them, that's when they get into trouble, myself included. If I didn't understand an investment many years ago, we got a phone call, $350,000 investment had disappeared overnight in auction rate preferred securities. I had a year and a half of not knowing if we were going to get that money back. Ultimately, the bank was sued and we got the money back. But I'll tell you, I didn't understand the investment. They sold it one way, and I will never do that kind of thing again, right? Like, you learn from those horrible mistakes. And I think I'm teaching my children how to not just have me do it for them, but I'm like, listen, we have to slow down. I need you to understand this. And the other part about finance, and especially taxes or managing and trying to lower your taxes, is that there's a lot of subjectivity to it, right? Like, you will have to make educated guesses. CPAs do that all the time, but a lot of times people want it to be like black or white. And it's like, not that simple. You're going to have to make some calls. You're going to have to feel comfortable with what you're doing and trust that that's okay. And that requires you to be knowledgeable. How's that?
Yeah, that's great. I think that's fantastic. And I think, yeah, getting back to the basics and the fundamentals, and making sure that you have those trusted advisors to lean on, but you're not giving the responsibility to them, right? You're accepting all the responsibility and you're working with them, and to find creative solutions and ways to manage wealth. I think that's really practical and that's very helpful. You have a new book that I think you're writing right now. I might want to sneak peek it a little bit, right? You have the Mindful Millionaire, and then you have a new one perhaps that you're working on. Anything you want to kind of touch on about that or sneak peek that right now?
The one thing I'll say is I'm writing it as a fiction book, and it's not easy because that's not what I was ever intending to do. But what I want to say to that is that our relationship with money, which is what I think I'm a specialist on, is not just in like the dollars and cents or even the behaviors as much as it is about the feelings that we get in life and the feelings that we get, like I said, on that scooter in Bali, or the experiences that I had when I took one of my clients to Paris last year. She had never been to Europe before, and the experience of seeing Paris through her eyes was the most magical thing. So what I realized is that I have all this knowledge inside of me, and just spitting it out and telling people like, do this, do that, do this, isn't all that interesting. Whereas if I could incorporate it into a story that people could see themselves inside of and talk about things like scarce city rather than scarcity, like describe this world of scarce city that we're all trapped in and that we all make crazy decisions because of, it becomes more fun, it becomes more alive, it becomes more inspired. And so that's what I'm writing about and testing out with my clients right now.
Well, I can't wait for the book because that's going to be fun. And I think that's so key. I love what you said, experiences we get in life, right? And or out of life might be another way to think about it versus, just living life. And then, and again, it's about, I think, back to taking responsibility, right? Having a clear vision and setting goals that are beyond wealth, right? Which is what we're talking about with Leisa Peterson here today, wealthclinic.com. You can also find her other book, Mindful Millionaire. She also has a Mindful Millionaire podcast, and she has free resources for you too. If you go check out wealthclinic.com, she has the abundance gifts. You can check that out, free download. Lisa, I want to shift a little bit. I like to geek out about, some capital gains tax and some stuff, and you might know a thing or two about some 1031 exchanges and such, and just kind of incorporating with the experiences, right? Part of what we do is we use a strategy called a deferred sales trust to unlock capital gains to multiply freedom and impact. And it's different things for different people, but a lot of what you're saying, right? The ability to have more experiences with their family, more experiences with their loved ones and friends, more experiences because they have more time on their side, more experiences to make an impact in people's lives that are the most vulnerable people in this world, right? Where they can give more. But a lot of things, what's happened is this tax is in between, right? Like they can't, they feel trapped because of the capital gains tax. And so talk to us about what it can mean with this $84 trillion transfer. I don't know if you've heard of this. The baby boomers, the largest wealth transfer in the history of the planet's happening. And it's this tremendous opportunity, but also a tremendous challenge for those who have the highly appreciated assets. There's like something like 80 million baby boomers in the US alone. There's 10,000 turning 65 every single day. And 50% of the total wealth is in high-end primary homes, businesses, and or private equity, or commercial real estate, I'm sorry. And it feels like it's trapped for a lot of people in these high tax states. So the ability to be great stewards with this wealth, but unlock these experiences by deferring that tax, because I think they say that there's two things that are most expensive in life. Tax is number two, and the other one is what you don't know. So what do you want to make sure people know when it comes to capital gains tax?
Yeah, I mean, it's a game changer. It could make the difference of someone being in stress for the rest of their life versus having freedom. I don't think that anything compares to the freedom of having choice. And I think what your company does is give people options. I think it's coming up more and more and more, like, of how do I deal with capital or the gain, the appreciation on real estate or other transfers. So whenever you can find a pathway that takes the stress out of it, I'm all for it.
I love the way you put that. Find a pathway that takes the stress out of it, right? And if the stress is the capital gains tax or the asset that you're having to manage, toilets, trash, termites, liability, is there a pathway to take the stress out of that and still financially help you to be sound, right? To have that, back to the personal finance, like how is that going to help you to live, and have the margin and have the cash flow to have time on your side versus trading time for dollars. Find a pathway. I like that. I think I'm going to use that, Lisa. I see. I knew that question for a reason. By the way, if you want to learn more about what we do, you go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. You can also check out the new book called Building a Capital Gains Tax Exit Plan. It's not quite, it's like a year old now, but I still call it new because it's my first book. So it's always kind of new, but you can check that out on Amazon. That being said, Lisa, we're running out of time. Are you ready for the lightning round?
Sure.
All right. Knowing what you know now, if you could go back to your 25-year-old self, what's the one golden nugget and make sure to tell yourself to do?
Become self-employed sooner.
Who was Lisa working for at 25? I'm curious, or 20?
I was working for an insurance intermediary. Yeah. And then, yep, insurance, then banking, financial advising. Yeah.
Hey, but it sets you up for where you're at in your
It
journey, right?
did. I know a lot.
Yeah. Question number 2, what's the number one book you recommended or gifted the most in the past year?
The Mindful Millionaire. I'd say Untethered Soul is another one that comes up. Yeah. Great
Okay.
book to check out by Michael Singer.
Okay, awesome. Question number 3, what are you most curious about right now?
How does my book end? I'm just really deep in the writing process, and I've got 30 people trying out the material as I write it. So I'm very curious about how it ends.
I like that. I am too now. Next question. Number one leadership quote or theme that you strive to live by?
I love Tim Ferriss's quote, reality is negotiable.
Okay. All right. I have to explore that a little bit more because now I'm curious. The next question is this. Number one way you're using ChatGPT?
Everything. Email. I have an email newsletter. I come up with all these great ideas and then I put it in. I'm like, help it be more bright and cheery and awesome. And yeah, I love it as a tool for writing.
Awesome. Love it. Second to last question. We're coming out with a new podcast called Build It to Billions, so you can give it all away. So when you think about, the people that you can help become millionaires and or potentially billionaires with the mindset and the coaching and the inspiration that you're providing, what would it mean to be able to give that all away for the most, vulnerable people in this world to make a huge lasting impact?
What would it mean to
For you or for them,
me?
just overall,
Yeah.
like to be able to build something to billions or a billion,
Yep.
right? Just to, really something it's just maybe
Yeah.
outside of what you normally would think, and having a mindset to do that so that you can give it all away. Not that you have
100%.
to or forced to, but just the impact and the idea of those two concepts together.
Yeah, something we've been doing is sponsoring children in Nicaragua to go to school because their school system is not like ours. And recently I watched one of the parents who we had been sponsoring her daughter for many years reach out and say, we want the money that you've been paying for our daughter to go to someone else because we've reached a stage where we can take care of it and we want to pay it forward. So we're talking about the poorest of poor figuring out how to take over for us so we could sponsor for someone else. And what that tells me is that if I were to sponsor a whole school of children, that there would be multiple schools created as a result of whatever I do. It multiplies way beyond what we can ever imagine. So that's what I think about when I give.
What a beautiful story. Yeah. Compounding generosity through personal responsibility, having some help to get going, but then say, hey, look, we got this now. Thank you. Can you redirect that to a family who needs it a little bit more than us? With that being said, Leisa Peterson, I want to thank you for being on the show. I want to thank you for sharing inspiration, knowledge, wisdom with us. Cool stuff on being beyond wealth, help us to think beyond just today, everyday mundane, but making a difference and an impact. For our listeners who want to get in touch with you, could you mind one last time, what's the best place for them to find you?
Sure. Go to wealthclinic.com/vision. And there's some gifts in the first chapter of my book, so you could check it out.
Awesome. And also want to thank every listener for listening. In fact, we're actually streaming on 3 podcasts right now. Build It to Billions podcast, brand new. That's going to be coming out here soon. Capital Gains Tax Solutions and Expert CRE Secrets podcast. I know that's a lot, but guess what? Leisa she hits all 3. And so she's a special guest that hits all 3 of those. So you can check us out on all the YouTube channels, all the podcasts for those 3. But ultimately, we want to encourage you to have a clear vision. You want to pursue the things that Leisa's talking about, ways to make an impact and live beyond wealth. And of course, if you have some capital gains tax challenges, check out the book we talked about, Building a Capital Gains Tax Exit Plan. Go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. We appreciate everyone out there, and we'll talk again real soon. Bye now.